Welcome to the truth and the key being the key of David. We're going to do Matthew chapter 24 today. We're going to try to complete the whole chapter. This is a very important chapter of the Bible, as Christ tells us in this chapter the signs to look for before his second coming. So before we start, let's say a prayer. Father in heaven, thank you for everything you've blessed us with, and help us to understand your word in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so if you want to follow along, we're in the King James Bible, and we're going to start with Matthew chapter 24, verse 1. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him to show him the buildings of the temple. And the reason they're making a big deal out of this is because the buildings of the temple were huge, fantastic buildings with really large building stones, very, very large. And verse 2, And Jesus said unto them, See ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Now, many think that the Roman general Titus accomplished this when he destroyed the temple. But that temple wall, there's part of that temple wall, the western wall, still stands today. Verse 3, And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Okay, when Christ arrives, he will destroy everything in Jerusalem and pulverize all those stones, so then there will not be one stone left upon another, as there still is today. Verse 4, And Jesus answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you. And again, deception's the first thing to look for. Verse 5, For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, or I am a Christian, and shall deceive many. Verse 6, And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye not be troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Verse 7, For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilences, and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And we certainly have seen a huge increase in earthquakes, famines, pestilences, and of course wars and rumors of wars. The countries of the world have been aligning themselves for many years now, according to Scripture. And the beginning of sorrows, this is referring to birth pains in the Greek, meaning that we are coming to the end of the age and the birth of a new age, an age free from Satan. Verse 9, Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. Now, we know the elect will be delivered up before Satan, and our characters will be maligned or figuratively killed. And the elect and the two witnesses of Revelation will be hated by the world. Why will they be hated? Well, for telling the truth. Many are offended by that truth. Verse 10, And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Verse 11, And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. Okay, false prophets and deception are really the main thrust of the tribulation of the false Christ, Antichrist. Expect the deception to be unusually strong. All the more reason then, for all of us to study, now and thicken up that gospel armor. Let's go to verse 12. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. Okay, iniquity means wickedness. The love of many shall wax cold With love, we think of warmth. Wax cold means turns cold. So when love turns cold, that means it stops being love. So what does this mean then? Well, it means because there is so much wickedness in the world, many stop loving God. Verse 13. And he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. Okay, those who continue loving God until the end when Christ returns will be saved. Verse 14. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. Okay, the gospel of the kingdom will be preached to all the world through the two witnesses of Revelation 11 and through the elect who are delivered up. And the elect are those who know the truth. They are the church, the true church of Christ. They are true Christians. Verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whosoever readeth, let him understand. Okay, the abomination of desolation is a reference to Daniel 9:27. So let's go there. We'll go to Daniel 9, that's chapter 9, verse 27. And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even unto the consummation, which would be the end of the tribulation. And that determined shall be poured upon the desolate. Okay, what we have here is a parable in Daniel 9:27, which is linked to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Satan, as Antichrist, stands in the holy place at the midst of the week, claiming to be God, and this causes the great apostasy of the church when he causes the sacrifice and the oblation to cease. Christ became our daily sacrifice at the crucifixion. He was the lamb slain, and he, Christ, became our Passover lamb. So the reference to the sacrifice and oblation in the parable is a reference to Christianity. So when Antichrist, the false Christ, when he deceives the world into worshiping him, what he does is he causes Christians then to perform the apostasy. They're falling away from Christianity without even really knowing it, and they're worshiping Satan instead of the real Christ. Okay, this is confirmed in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and let's go there and we'll read from that. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day, what day? The day that Christ returns, shall not come except there come a falling away. Falling away in Greek is apostasy. First, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. Again, that day is the day that Christ returns, and we are gathered to him. Falling away is apostasia in the Greek, which means apostasy, to turn away from your faith. The son of perdition is Satan as Antichrist. Satan is so far the only soul who has actually been sentenced to perish in the lake of fire. So that's who we're talking about, Satan as the false Christ. Okay, verse 4. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Okay, so of course there he is. He's in the temple, and he's claiming to be God. And let's go back to Matthew chapter 24, verse 16. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. 17. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. 18. Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. Okay, when you see Satan as the false Christ, Antichrist, in the temple in Jerusalem, the time is getting very close to when the real Christ returns and destroys or pulverizes Jerusalem. So it's time to get out of there. Verse 19. And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. Okay, this is figuratively being with child, meaning those who have been deceived by the false Christ are figuratively in bed with him. Verse 20. But pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Okay, flight here is again talking about getting out of Jerusalem. Winter is figurative for being harvested out of season, where summer would be the normal harvest time. Those who are deceived into believing that Antichrist is the real Christ are harvested out of season then. Okay, now what about the Sabbath day? Why should your flight out of Jerusalem not be on the Sabbath day? Well, at Christ's time, it was not lawful to travel more than 1 mile on the Sabbath day. And 1 mile would not be far enough to get out of Jerusalem. Okay, let's go to verse 21. For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. Okay, the tribulation of the false Christ, Antichrist, is about deception. Satan's goal is to get as many as he can to worship him as the one and only God. Satan and his angels will be very convincing and will deceive most of the world. Verse 22. And except those days should be shortened, there should be no flesh saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. Okay, the deception will be so powerful that even God's elect, that's those who know the truth, will not be able to withstand Satan's lies, as he's so convincing, unless God shortens the tribulation. Okay, again we see that it is deception that is the main thrust of Satan's tribulation. Okay, so we'll go to verse 23. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is Christ, or there, believe it not. Okay, when Christ returns, we won't need anyone to tell us that he is here. At the moment that Christ returns, everyone will have a change from the flesh body into the spiritual body. And let's turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52 for documentation on that. Okay, verse 52 in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. In a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, that would be the 7th trump, is the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. 53. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality. Okay, at the last trump, and like I said, naturally that's the same as the 7th trump of Revelation, which is the trump of God. There are 7 trumps in Revelation. The 7th trump is the last trump. Let's turn to 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 for the trump of God. Okay, verse 16. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. 17. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Okay, what we see here is that the trump of God is the same trump as the last trump of 1 Corinthians 15:52. So that verse in 1 Corinthians is talking about the same event as in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16. Okay, so let's go back to Matthew chapter 24. Or first, let's go to let's see. Go to verse Matthew chapter 16, verse 27. Okay, and what we've got here, first before we go there, let's just explain a little bit about some idiomatic expressions. In the clouds is an idiomatic expression in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, 16 and 17, verse 17. And it means a large group. The large group would be an army of angels. We see the same idiom also used in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, where it says, so great a cloud of witnesses. We also see Christ returning with his angels in Matthew chapter 16, verse 27. So now let's go to that verse. For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels. So we see that when Christ comes, he comes with his angels. So when in the other verses there, where it says he comes in the clouds, that's what it's talking about. That's the same event. Okay, now let's go back to chapter 24 and verse 24. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. Okay, let's look at this word false, the false Christ. We'll look this up in the Strong's Concordance. For those of you who have a Strong's, you know how to look that up. What that is it's the Strong's Concordance is a Hebrew and Greek dictionary, and you can look up any word in the King James Bible and find the original word from the manuscript in what the language that the Bible was written in Greek or Hebrew. In the New Testament, it's Greek. So let's look at that. We've got the Greek is number 5580. That's Greek word 5580. It's pseudo-Christos. And what it means is it means a spurious Messiah. Okay, so false prophets in verse 24 would no doubt be Satan's angels who were cast out with him to the earth. And let's go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 to document that. Okay, 12, verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Okay, let's go back to Matthew chapter 24, verse 25. Behold, I have told you before. Verse 26. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers. Believe it not. Again, we don't need anyone to tell us when or where Christ is when he returns. We will already know, as we will all be changed into our spiritual bodies at that moment, as documented in 1 Corinthians 15 and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. Okay, verse 27. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, so Christ's return will be very sudden. Verse 28. For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together. Okay, carcass actually is what it means is, of course, a dead body. And for those of you who have a companion Bible, in the side column in the companion Bible, the eagles is translated as vultures. Okay, the Thayer's Lexicon also describes this as vultures. And the reason is that vultures resemble eagles, but eagles seldom or never go in quest of dead carcasses as vultures do. Okay, verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days. Okay, now let's mark that in your mind. Verse 29 says immediately after the tribulation. Okay, of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. Verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Okay, again, the idiom clouds of heaven, okay, which would mean a large group of angels. Okay, 31. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay, so what we've got here is there are 7 trumpets of the 7 angels in the book of Revelation. The last trump is when Christ returns. The first 6 trumps of Revelation are all about the tribulation of Antichrist. The 7th trump is the last trump. It is the trump of God as Antichrist and the beast system are destroyed at the 7th trump. The 1,000-year reign of Christ begins. So when is this trumpet, when the angels gather the elect in verse 31 above? This happens after the tribulation. Remember I said, mark that in verse 29. All of this happens after the tribulation. Okay, and let's go to Matthew 24, verse 32, and this is what this is now is the parable of the fig tree. Okay, now the parable of the fig tree is the sign of the last generation or the last days. So let's start in at verse 32. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh, or near. That's the harvest time again. Summer is harvest time. Verse 33. So likewise ye, when ye shall hear or shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. 34. For verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Verse 35. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words shall not pass away. 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Okay, so we've got verse 32 starts this parable, and there's a whole lot in that verse. And we'll reread that again. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. Okay, now the symbol of the nation of Judah, commonly called the nation of the Jews, was the fig tree since the time of Jeremiah and the Babylonian captivity. That goes back to around 500 BC. See Jeremiah 24 for documentation on that. Now, how is a fig tree planted? Okay, you take a small branch and stick it in the ground, and water it, and it starts growing into a new tree. So this branch then would be symbolic of a branch of the Jewish nation. Now, what does the word Jews mean? Okay, the word Jews in the Greek is Iudaios, and it means either a child of the tribe of Judah or a resident of Judea. Now, being we're talking about the nation of the Jews, this would be referring to all of its residents. Okay, now yet tender, what would that mean? Okay, that would mean that the branch of the nation of the Jews, the one we're talking about here, would still be young. Now, modern Israel, or the nation of the Jews, was planted in 1948. Now, and as far as nations go, that is still very young. It's only 65 years old. Putteth forth leaves. Okay, this branch of the fig tree, just as in Matthew 21:19, has no fruit. And why is this significant? Let's go to Matthew chapter 21:19, which is a parable of its own, and it's connected to this parable. Okay, Matthew chapter 21, verse 19. And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it, and found nothing thereon but leaves only, and said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforward forever. Okay, again, the fig tree is symbolic of the nation of the Jews. This fig tree again has leaves only, no fruit. Okay, fruit would be symbolic of the true children of Judah. Henceforward forever means that from that time forward there would be no fruit in the fig tree nation. To understand this parable, we must understand who the synagogue of Satan are. Okay? And if you don't understand that, just put it on the back burner. We'll get into more studying on that in future studies. Okay, back to Matthew 24:32. You know that summer is nigh. Okay, that means the end is near. So what does verse 32 mean? First of all, we are supposed to learn the parable of the fig tree nation. We learn that in Matthew 21:19. The nation of the fig tree will be fruitless from Christ's time forward forever. Okay, when that branch of the fruitless fig tree is planted in Jerusalem in 1948 and still young, 65 years old is young for a nation, we know that the end is near. Now in verse 34 we have, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. What generation? The generation which started in 1948. Now that generation is now 65 years old. We may be very close to the end right now. And again, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Well, what things is he talking about? Christ is talking about all the signs he's laid out in Matthew chapter 24. So that generation of the fig tree shall not pass until all the prophecy of Matthew 24 is fulfilled. Okay, so the main theme of Matthew 24, besides the signs, is deception in the end days. And Christ spoke so often in parables and metaphors. Immediately after giving us the parable of the fig tree, he gives us another parable in verses 37 through 39. And so we'll go to Matthew 24, verse 37. And now this is a real-life example from Noah's time, used metaphorically to be the same as in the last days. Verse 37. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. 38. For as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Verse 39. And knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, and Matthew 24, the next verses 40 through 42, what this is a parable for the last days and is an extension of the above metaphor of Noah's days. Let's read that, verse 40. Then shall two be in the field, the one shall be taken and the other one left. 41. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one shall be taken and the other left. 42. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. Okay, what we have here is it's an extended metaphor used as a parable. The flood taking the one, and the other left is a metaphoric parable. Flood being used metaphorically as deception, and it is then deception that takes the one. Okay, the ark in Noah's days saved the righteous family of Noah. The ark in the end days is truth, which saves the elect and others from deception. So verses 40 and 41, many people have talked about these verses, and they're famous for being rapture verses, as they are often taken out of context all by themselves. The rapture theorists would say that the one taken is raptured. Taken in context, we see that the one taken is taken by the flood. The flood is a flood of lies and deception, and the one left is left working. This one has the truth and will not be deceived by the false Christ and his flood of lies and deception. Okay, so where else do we see flood as representing lies and deception? Let's turn to Revelation chapter 12, verse 15. Okay, verse 15. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Okay, the serpent here is the false Christ, Antichrist. Cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman. What comes out of Antichrist's mouth? Well, lies and deception, right? Who is the woman? The woman is Israel, or Jacob's descendants. Okay, let's turn to Revelation 12, verse 16. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. 17. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay, so again, what would this flood be that comes out of Antichrist's mouth? It's lies and deception. Now in verse 17, we have the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So who are the remnant of her seed? Well, we know one thing for sure, and that is that they are Christian, and they know where they came from and who their brethren are. And also, they will not bow a knee to Antichrist. We're talking about the elect here. Okay, and this is the elect we're talking about here. They are the lost sheep of the house of Israel from the Assyrian captivity, who migrated over the Caucasus Mountains, thus the name Caucasians, and they spread across Europe and to America, and today they don't even know who they are, for the most part anyway. But those few who do know will stand and fight against the false Christ. And this is a battle against Satan's lies and deception. Okay, let's go back to Matthew chapter 24, And we'll just reread verse 42. Watch therefore, for ye know not what hour the Lord come. Okay, we will not know the exact instant. Verse 43. But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up. Verse 44. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh. Well, what would that mean? Well, what happens is if most of the world, most Christians are going to suffer from the apostasy, thinking that the false Christ is Christ. So they think Christ is already here. And so the hour that they think not, that, when he comes, they're going to be awfully surprised, because they'll be thinking Christ is here, and then all of a sudden the real Christ returns. Okay, so we're supposed to be watchmen and pay attention to all of the signs of the end that Christ has given us in this chapter. And if we don't have the truth sealed in our minds, Christ's second coming will take us by surprise, and we may be worshiping the false Christ. Verse 45. Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give them meat in due season? 46. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find doing so. We need to be leading people to the truth during the tribulation of the false Christ. Okay, 47. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. 48. But and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in that hour that he is not aware of. 51. And shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Okay, most people will be worshiping the false Christ because they will have rejected God's word in the Bible. They'll be so dazzled with the false Christ, that's Satan playing his role as the Antichrist, and his supernatural abilities. And when the real Christ returns, all of those who have been worshiping the false Christ will realize their mistake, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Well, that wraps up Matthew 24. I hope you have enjoyed it, and thank you for joining The Truth and the Key, and may God bless you. And remember to keep studying His Word, and have a great day.